Hello everyone. Today let us talk about some initial checks that you can do uh, before starting or even performing an upgrade. And this is of course applicable for both Jira and Confluence, or in fact any Atlassian tools or applications. And I thought I'll probably talk about these initial things that you should be doing. This is of course not really a complete checklist, and at the same time it is also not really all the things that you should possibly do. I'm just trying to give you some ideas, things to think about. Now the very first thing that you should do, and this is of course applicable for someone who might be upgrading Jira or Confluence for the very first time, and and even if you are an experienced Jira Confluence administrator, uh, I'm sure I'm sure you can share your experience about things that can go wrong, and I can also share from my experience. Many times I have done things that I could have done differently to avoid rollbacks or things to ensure that the overall success of the project is not really hampered by those small silly mistakes. So whenever I have to do an upgrade, I start with a checklist. I do have a checklist, a huge checklist, and I don't really rely on my brain. I rely on that checklist, and I promise I will share that checklist with all of you. I still need to make it a bit neat and organize it, but I can start giving you some ideas. And I think I have talked about upgrading Atlassian applications, and I think I have done an upgrade live once on this channel. And and I'm making this video because I want to, of course, share not only share my experience, but I think it is very important for someone who is starting to learn uh, these different activities if they are involved with Atlassian tools. If you're looking for a job, or maybe you're just learning it for your for for for, for maybe your client, or maybe you're working in a company and you are given this responsibility. Usually Jira upgrade or Confluence upgrade or Atlassian upgrades can also be done by someone who has absolutely no idea about how uh, Jira applications, Jira or Confluence and other Atlassian applications work. So you need not. It is good to know a lot of things, but even if you don't know exactly each and everything about uh, Jira internals, you can still do an upgrade. It is all about understanding the process, and everything is well documented. So in the beginning, if you are totally new, always start with the documentation. So if you go to the documentation, you can start looking at different things that are mentioned, just to get familiar, just to get familiar with the process. And there are plenty of things that you can find and learn here. Apart from that, I was thinking of course, making my own. While I'm recording this video, I'll also try to organize my thoughts. So, so the topic of this video is initial checks, whatever. So the first thing is go to the official documentation, and also at the same time, if if you can, uh, no, you should be working on you should be doing or doing an upgrade first on a test environment. So this is of course a very obvious thing. I mean, don't even think about upgrading on the upgrading your application directly on production without testing it. But in this video, to be honest, I don't really want to talk about those aspects. I'm assuming that you want to do an upgrade, and these things are taken care of. These are of course very normal, obvious things. But when you start doing an upgrade, and let us say you log into the server, then what all you should keep in mind. Now, let us say you have this test environment. You should try to refresh it with the latest data from your production. Now, there are a couple of things that can happen. Either you get a server which is a blank server, which is same as your production. So if you have a blank server, you need to install Jira first and make sure that it is on the same version as your production. But in almost all the cases these days, it is very easy for your infrastructure team to replicate your production server and clone it very easily. So you don't have to worry about those aspects. But the point is that you should have an environment where you have latest dump or restore or refresh of production data. So basically, when you start doing an upgrade, you should have, let us say, you perform this restore today. So you have all the configurations, you have all the issues, and your test environment is exactly like your production in terms of, not only the application, but the platform itself. You should have the same version of, let us say, database, MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, whatever you are talking about, JDK as well, and if you are, let us say, using the MySQL library, for example, then everything should be the same. And start with an environment where you have things that are from production, like recent data and configurations from production. Then make sure that your environment has there is enough space on the server. And when I say enough space on the server, I'm talking about things like when you take a backup, which is my next point, like first start taking backups of database, your Jira Confluence install directory, right? And at the same time, you need to take a backup of your home directory. So if your Jira instance is huge and massive, and you have, like, let us say 50 GB or even more, attachments, so it might not be possible to take a backup of the attachment folder, so you can exclude it from your backups. But the whole idea of taking a backup is to make sure that you can restore. Now, talking about backups, when you get access to the server, make sure the user has root or sudo rights. So you should be able to basically, you should have admin rights to perform different things. For example, you should have access to all the commands. Don't really, imagine that you are, sometimes what happens when you are, let us say, doing something on your environment, you have to, let us say, use a command, and maybe for your user that command is not there at all, because that can happen. So make sure the user has the root or sudo rights, or at least you have the list of those. This is where your administrator, your server administrator, will help you, because that is probably a different domain than doing an upgrade. But of course, if you are already a Linux administrator, make sure you have the rights. and the user that you're using has rights to do those changes on on the server. You should have uh, the server should have all the tools and utilities to perform um, the upgrade activities. So basically, you should have things like tar and MySQL dump, or maybe PG dump, or Oracle. I don't know about Oracle. What is the name of the? I'm sure using Toad, I guess you can take a dump, but I'm sure there are other ways. So what else? You should be able to uh, copy. You should be able to tail. I mean, having these commands is always good. You should have an editor like maybe VI or Nano or Emacs in my case, and depending upon the 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 operating system, the flavor you're using, you should have some other applications. So etc. I'm just trying to give you an idea about different things. The next very important point is the server should have network connectivity to download uh, app- Atlassian application files, or uh, someone should give you those files. For example, if you're doing an upgrade on Linux, then or ask your server administrator, because just to be clear, ask your server administrator to give you those files. Basically, you need, if you're installing Jira, or if you're upgrading Jira, or if you're upgrading Confluence, you should have those files, the archive files that you can use. You might need to also upgrade, let us say, your platform. Maybe you need to upgrade your database, maybe you need to upgrade your Postgres, maybe you need to upgrade your some utilities that you're using and they're not compatible. So check those things first. That can you, like, if you're on, let us say, CentOS, for example, do you have those packages available in the repository? Check the availability. Yeah, I guess so. I think availability of the necessary packages in the repo. Um, so let us say you need to upgrade Postgres. Either you can upgrade it using, let us say, Yum, or whatever package manager that you're using, or maybe the RPM, or maybe if you don't have if you don't have that in the package repository, then maybe you can install source code and install it manually, like make it and like compiling it and building from source. Or you should or check if those packages can be built from these sources. So these are some of the things. And on the server, I'm just trying to write a document. I thought I'll probably also record a video and also show you my thought process. So what else? So let us say, so you get access to the server, you start looking that you have enough space. Okay, you have enough space, and you also start taking backups because you have enough space. And I think, similar to taking backups, there's no harm in checking if there are check for existing backup scripts. This can also happen quite a lot because usually you have some backup scripts that will perform backup and maybe delete the old unnecessary files. For example, if you're taking a backup of database or install directory or home directory, you can take a backup manually, or you can have everything configured in a shell script. I'm a bit old-fashioned, so sometimes I use shell scripts to take these and perform these backups on a regular basis on my servers, and I use cron job. And yes, good point. Check cron tab just in case to know any regular jobs. So I'm trying to also give you this list of I mean, if I share my complete checklist, you can take a look at it, but I wanted to give you I wanted to write this list while I'm making a video, it's like I'm talking to you or explaining it to you, so you can imagine that I'm sitting right next to you and you're asking me questions. And let me also add one more point. I'm just trying to remember everything. Ensure that you have a rollback procedure. So let us say things go wrong. Can you roll back if things go wrong? Can you roll back from the backups you took, or check for the possibilities of taking snapshots? So if you're able to take snapshots, then great. And by the way, this rollback strategy is different, and it is based on, let us say if you're doing an inline upgrade, you have the server and you have to perform the upgrade on the same server. So in those cases you have basically slightly, I mean, not really a risk, but basically when you're on the same server and let us say things are messed up, then you have to perform cleanup. You have to maybe restore things from the backup files. You have to restore the install directory, home directory, and database, restart the service. And if you are also performing, let us say, an upgrade of the database, then that is another pain. So and talking about database, let me also talk about one thing. Let us say if you have to upgrade MySQL, so try to install MySQL or whatever things that you need in a way that you have two services running. Let us say you're upgrading from 5.7 to another version of MySQL, and if things go wrong, then you might need to revert the database, and reverting is not always smooth. So what I prefer installing different versions of databases, and I then restore the version, or let us say if I have to go back, so I stop the service of MySQL newer version and I start the service and resume the service of the old version. And talking about services, ensure that the services are services that are no longer needed are disabled. For example, you don't really want to have, let us say if the server reboots, you don't really want your MySQL 5.7 along with 5.6 both running at the same time. So just take a look at your systemctl, I guess, and list all the services and check for the status. And so the other the other upgrade could be on a fresh server. If you're migrating it to a fresh server, in that case, rollback is basically not changing the URL. So there is no rollback. Basically, you are asking users to, okay, we are doing an upgrade this weekend, and please don't use Jira. Maybe put your Jira in read-only mode or do whatever you want to do with it. But if things go wrong, Monday morning, just send them a notification that, okay, we are now going to not migrate because things went wrong. We'll try again next weekend, and that is of course upgrading and performing a migration at the same time to a different server, because sometimes you have to change the server. So we have talked about 13 points, and I'm not really talking about each and everything. I'm talking about things that these are like some of the initial checks that you can do on the server on day one, like when you are when you're working on your server, and do maintain a run book, because obviously you should have a run book so that you can keep track of what you're doing. And also at the same time, in your run book, keep all the paths and necessary information that you um, need to access quickly. For example, if you know the paths, and if you know the usernames, not the passwords, I mean, store somewhere where you can access them quickly. So basically the thing is that when you're performing these activities, you should have a run book somewhere, like a document, nothing but a document, a simple text file, like this, like, this is my run book. And if I have to, let us say, in my run book, if I'm maintaining my run book, let us say in my org file, I insert a code like this. And if I'm doing something on shell, like if it is a command, then I keep track of, let us say, if I have to take a backup, so I'll do like czvf and directory location, whatever, like, opt and g Atlassian, Jira, current, and whatever, I mean, just trying to give you an idea about how you should keep track of these things so you can always access them if needed. And we talked about runbook. We talked about in your runbook, keep all the paths and necessary information handy that you need to access quickly. And I think 15 is a good number, talking about those initial checks. And what else? I'm just trying to imagine, like, I'm imagining myself doing an upgrade so that I can and this is how I do it usually. I mean, we have to ensure that in the beginning we are doing everything in the right order. And when you, no matter how many times I mean, I've done so many upgrades, but every time I go through the list, my checklist, either I put a check mark, or I keep a note of it, or I skip it, but I mark it somewhere, and I make sure I go through those things so that I don't really make mistakes. And I have made mistakes in the past. Once I had to restore once I had to perform a rollback from the airport lobby when I was waiting for my flight back to Delhi. I think I was in Chennai in India. It was not a nice experience. Fortunately, I had the backup, and I was able to restore everything within half an hour. But it was a pain, because usually when I'm traveling back after finishing my work, I want to have my beer at the airport, and I want to relax. I'm feeling proud. But if I receive a call from my client, and the client is complaining that, okay, whatever you didn't work, you made this mistake, please revert. We need to revert, either come back to the office, or do an upgrade, right, or do a rollback right now. So I had to do it once, and I have made it. It was not really a mistake, but when you're working with a team, when you are dealing with people from different departments, it is a bit of a challenge. It is not always smooth, because you may not always have everything within your control. And you can avoid those things if you are keeping a list of these things. For example, let us say you get access to the server, and everything is great, but you don't have access to one command, or maybe you don't have enough space on the server, or maybe there is a firewall blocking you to download something. So you can if you don't keep if you don't put a check for these points for these checklists, then you will be in trouble later on. So I think we can probably end this video, and that that is it. That is it for today. And I want to basically tell you that if you are making sure that you maintain this list somewhere, and then if you start performing the upgrade, and these 15 points are just to give you, I just wanted to give you an idea, and wanted to ensure that you know about what all things can go wrong. And I will definitely talk more about system admin things related to Jira, like various activities that you need to do. I have done one upgrade on my video in the past. I think I don't have access to the server because I didn't pay for it. It was on a VPS, I guess. And yeah, it was on a VPS, the Jira instance I had. Now I have my Jira instance running on my local, which is actually not bad. I am quite happy with that. I use everything on my local environment. I was using that VPS because it is always good to have it is always nice to have an environment which is always up and running, and you can access it from anywhere. But for the past 1 year, I think it has been 1 year since the lockdown started last year in March, we are not really going anywhere. And I think things will probably stay the same for foreseeable future. So that is why I thought, I don't need that VPS. I'll probably host it on my laptop, because for my personal learning, I host my own things locally within my home network. But I will try to show you other things related to an upgrade. So let us end this video now, and thank you very much for watching, if you are still watching this video, by the way. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much.